The debate on how life began has been a problem among scientists and theologians for centuries. These debates have crafted many trains of thought about how the universe came to be. We'll be starting off with amino acids. So what are amino acids? Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. They're small organic molecules that are made up of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. Sometimes in these amino acids, sulfur is present as well. There are approximately 20 standard amino acids that are used to build all the proteins in the human body. If amino acids are so important, what do they look like? This is the structure of an amino acid. Amino acids share a central carbon known as the alpha carbon atom. Attached to this carbon are 4 groups: the amino, carboxyl, hydrogen, and R groups. Each group attached to the central carbon gives the amino acid its own unique properties. Some examples of these properties include polar, nonpolar, acidic, and basic. Now that we know what amino acids look like, what do they do? All the proteins in the human body are made up of long chains of amino acids. These chains of amino acids are bonded together by peptide bonds. Amino acids serve many different roles throughout the human body. Some of these roles include speeding up chemical reactions, providing support to the body, fighting infections, and regulating body processes. Now, amino acids aren't just thrown in there randomly. The sequence of amino acids determines the shape and function of the protein, and these shapes take on complex 3D structures. You may be asking yourself, why all the talk about amino acids? What is so important that I made a whole presentation on them? Many secular scientists use amino acids to try to prove that life was not created by God, but rather came about randomly. This random creation of life is a process known as abiogenesis. Now you may be asking yourself, what is abiogenesis? Abiogenesis is the idea that life began from non-living substances. The theory states that small amino acid molecules could have combined over a very long period of time to eventually create life. This theory is a major part of the theory of evolution and the origin of life among scientists. This theory is what led to experiments like the Miller-Urey experiment, and it continues to influence scientists to this day. In 1953, 2 scientists, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey, conducted an experiment that would become infamous among the scientific community. In this experiment, they set up a system of gases that they believed were present during the early stages of Earth's atmosphere. They believed in doing this, they could recreate that environment. To do this, they used gases such as hydrogen, ammonia, and methane. They even shot electrical sparks through the gases to simulate lightning. After running the experiment, they discovered that during the process, some amino acid had formed out of nothing. At the time, the Miller-Urey experiment was groundbreaking, but later there were some serious problems found out about the experiment. Later research proved that the gases used during the Miller-Urey experiment did not match the gases that scientists believed to be present during early Earth's atmosphere. Another reason the experiment was unsuccessful was due to something called the Maillard reaction. This reaction causes what is known as a non-enzymatic browning. It's mostly seen when cooking different types of food and could have been the cause for the amino acids during the experiment. All of these theories on how life might have began on Earth are great and all, but let's see what the Bible has to say about it. The teachings of the Bible directly contradict the theory of abiogenesis. Genesis 1 tells us that not only did God create all life on earth, but the entirety of creation. Genesis also teaches us in Genesis 1:6 that all human beings are made in the image of God, meaning that we as humans bear shadows of the characteristics of God. Some of these characteristics include love, mercifulness, and compassion. Due to this fact, we know our lives are not just random events happening in a chaotic universe, but our lives have real purpose. This purpose, of course, being to glorify God by reflecting His light to all of creation. Now that we've learned about who God says we are and how we came to be, let's compare the 2 different trains of thought. The secular view seeks to tell us that life began randomly through a process called abiogenesis. It states that molecules formed randomly over long periods of time and eventually became living organisms. And finally, the secular view would seek to tell you that evolution is the tool that nature used to push life to where we are now. The biblical perspective sees things just a little differently. The biblical account of Genesis tells us that God created all of existence and all life in a week. This leaves no room for the long period of time it would have taken for abiogenesis to occur. The account of Genesis also tells us that human beings as a species are made in the image of God. This means that our lives are not just random occurrences, but rather the thought-out plan of God. This plan that God has for our lives gives our lives purpose. So just to sum everything up, amino acids are the essential building blocks that make up all organic life. Many scientists who did not believe in God sought to find the answer for the origin of life. Two of these scientists were Stanley Miller and Harold Urey. They conducted an experiment known as the Miller-Urey experiment, but it was flawed. The experiment seemed to create organic amino acids from absolutely nothing, but it was actually just the effect of a chemical reaction known as the Maillard reaction. The theories that humans try to conjure up about the origin of life are always flawed. We as believers, however, have an account of the origin of life that is not only believable, but consistent with science. This account, of course, being the Bible. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you learned a little bit about how secular scientists see how the world and life began, and how the Bible is not only true, but is backed up by science. These are my sources that I used for my presentation. You probably can't see them now, but I'll put them in the Google Classroom. And my AI disclosure is right down here. I hope you have a great rest of your day.